Hi there everybody, Dave here from HeyUGuys, and I am joined by the wonderful Stefan Pape,
Hello there.
all from Russia, and the amazing Scott J. Davis.
Hello.
And today we shall be talking about Spider-Man Homecoming, which is in recent years, in the last 17 years, there have been three different Spider-Men. First two films sort of rebooted the series twice. This movie, I believe, takes us in a different direction. Obviously we saw Spider-Man in Civil War recently, and this is Spider-Man's first outing, and it's also the first outing or the first full feature film that has had Sony and Marvel or Disney join forces to create the movie. But Stefan, do you want to start by telling us what it's about and sort of how it sort of follows on from Civil War?
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously this film for starters hasn't got the burden of being an origin story, because we have been introduced to Tom Holland's Spider-Man so briefly in Civil War. It means that director Jon Watts can just go straight into the action, so we haven't got that big build up. We don't find out how he was infected and all of that kind of jargon. We can go straight into the action. So we meet Peter Parker just literally not even moments, just preceding Civil War, and the first kind of opening scene is a kind of video diary as he's kind of recording his journey that we obviously saw on the screen in that movie. And then when he comes back to New York, and the kind of idea behind this is that he's desperate to be an Avenger. He's desperate to get a phone call from Tony Stark or from Happy, played by Jon Favreau, just to be asked to do something, but they're not giving him anything to do, so he has to kind of find his own missions. And that's when he stumbles across a really quite nasty maniac, effectively called Adrian Toomes, which is obviously Vulture, which is played by Michael Keaton, who's selling illegal powerful weapons on the black market. So Spider-Man makes it his mission to take him down, despite the fact he's got Iron Man constantly in his ear telling him just to take a back seat.
And obviously Tom Holland is a British actor. He's been in the likes of The Impossible before. He's played Billy Elliot on stage. He went to Brit School. A friend of mine went to the screening last night who was at Brit School with Tom, and said that this movie is potentially the best Marvel movie ever, and definitely the best Marvel movie in an age. Scott, do you agree?
I wouldn't say it's the best Marvel movie of all time. I wouldn't, but I would say it's definitely one of the strongest that they've had so far. It's almost like a comic book come to life in terms of the way that it manages to be both fun and action-packed and have great characters, all in the space of just over 2 hours. You know, this isn't a 2.5 3-hour epic. It's quite contained in that way, but it's definitely in the top sort of 4 or 5 Marvel movies so far. And he will be right about Tom Holland, who is just fantastic in the movie. Reminded me a lot of I kept seeing flashes of a young Michael J. Fox in him in this movie. You know, Back to the Future, Teen Wolf kind of Michael J. Fox. But it's a fantastic movie, and for what they've done, they've arguably made the best Spider-Man movie so far, but it would definitely sit in the sort of the top 4 or 5 Marvel movies thus far, and it's a fantastic entry into the MCU, as they say.
Excellent. And Stefan, you gave the movie 4 stars on our written official review that's on HeyUGuys.com. Do you want to expand a bit on what you thought about it, and do you agree with Scott?
Yeah, I do. I wouldn't say it's the best superhero sort of Marvel movie, but it's definitely up there. I think there's a few things I like about it. I love how much we get to see Spider-Man interact with other superheroes, which we haven't seen before. He's always been quite self-contained, but they don't lose that kind of localized feel of the character, who always is sort of solving crimes in his sort of small kind of region, sort of radius of about 3 miles, it seems. And it's not Captain America trying to save the world, and the stakes aren't that high, but that's not really a problem where this is concerned. But I think where this is really just triumphs is it's just tonally. I think that it's funny and it's comedic the whole way through, but not quite as overtly, I'd say, as sort of Ant-Man or Deadpool were. But it is really funny, and it doesn't compromise at all on the action set pieces or the severity of the kind of implications of the story as well. So tonally, I think Jon Watts has done a remarkable job. But it's just, there's so many kind of new little additions I just loved. I was quite skeptical about Spider-Man being so much younger, and I was worried that Tom Holland was almost a bit too cool for the part, because I love Tobey Maguire's kind of geekiness and how he was always such an underdog, and I thought Tom Holland's got a bit more of a swagger about him. But again, that suited the playful nature of the film. It's very witty movie with lots of great sort of one-liners and lots of banter between a lot of the characters, and I think it suits him having that kind of air of confidence. And being young, it means that he's got this kind of unwavering sense of curiosity as well, which I think suits a protagonist, because he's always trying to impress and to try and do something right that is going to get Tony Stark in his good books and stuff. And I think we adopt that quite blissful perspective, and it gets him into all sorts of trouble along the way, which is really great. And he's not even a really great superhero; he's really rubbish at it to begin with. That's endearing as well, because it's very relatable. He sort of represents us in some ways, you know. He kind of, the way he sees the other Avengers like they're celebrities, it's almost how we do. And I think there's a real bond between the character of Spider-Man and the audience, which is what for me sets this apart.
And you actually spoke to director Jon Watts, and we were very fortunate to speak to Amy Pascal, who was she's the former head of Sony Pictures, and also Kevin Feige, who's the head of president of Marvel Studios. So and you expanded a bit on that with them, didn't you?
Yeah, no, I mean they were partly why they were so, it seemed, sort of keen to get this project off the ground, is because they loved the idea of reinventing Spider-Man. I say reinventing, actually almost taking it more back to the comic book creation of him, and actually kind of allowing him to be a teenager and really thrive in that idea. And I mean, they've crafted a movie which is in so many ways just a high school teen comedy, but with a superhero twist. If it didn't have that Marvel branding and the character we knew so well, this almost could be sold as a high school movie, just with a kind of supernatural edge to it. It's so much in that genre, and I think that's something that they were evidently really keen to get across. And I think that's one of the reasons why they both collaborated and brought Spider-Man back again so soon after the last one.
And obviously Michael Keaton plays Vulture in this movie. So just to be clear, I haven't actually seen the film yet. I'm very much looking forward to it. So the chaps won't put any spoilers in this, will they, Scott?
We will not.
But yeah, so Michael Keaton plays Vulture. How was his performance? And also the rest of the supporting cast. So there's a chap called, Tom Holland's best friend in the movie, called Ned, Jacob Batalon. In the sort of trailers and other footage that I've seen, he seems to be quite an integral, funny sort of sidekick, I guess, to Spider-Man.
So Jacob Batalon plays his best mate, and the chemistry between him and Tom Holland is fantastic. They are kind of the core of the movie, if you like, and their relationship is very, very funny. And he's a star in his own right. He gets some fantastic moments to shine. As for Michael Keaton, I thought he was good. He's probably one of the most evil villains of the MCU for a long time. They always struggle with the villains
in a good way, and like, I think good, bad, good, dark.
Yes, he's totally almost. I remember afterwards saying that he reminded me of the scene in Batman when Bruce Wayne says to Jack Nicholson about, "You want to get nuts? Come on, let's get nuts." It's kind of that level of evil. He's not like over the top or anything. He's quite sinister. I still think the villain's slightly weak, as they seem to be in these movies. But I thought Michael Keaton was very, very good. And some of the other supporting cast were fantastic as well. Donald Glover, with a little cameo in there, he was good. Marissa Tomei was fantastic as well. As was Jon Favreau as what's his name again? Happy Hogan, I think his name is, right?
I do love Jon Favreau because he's such an amazing, talented director. Yet he's obviously, he's cut his teeth in directing chair, but with things like Jungle Book even, which was just blew everybody away. But he's still just this normal bloke who just loves sort of, I think, the work that he does. So it's nice to see him. Like, how pivotal role does he play in this movie? Is it sort of like in this photo here, we see him sort of walking 3 steps behind, the main cast, but he's always there, and he always puts in a wicked performance, even if it is quite a small one. He's
the bridge between Peter Parker and Tony Stark. So whenever he's trying to get hold of Tony Stark, he has to go through Happy Hogan. So actually, Jon Favreau is, again, not to give any spoilers away, but I think he's actually in it about the same amount of time, if not slightly longer than Downey Jr., because he's like kind of the go-between. So he's the one that's always getting the phone calls from Peter Parker. He's the one that Peter kind of checks in with all the time about what he's been doing in Queens in terms of like stopping robberies or stopping bank heists and all this other stuff. So he plays quite an integral role. He's obviously in the background quite a lot, but yeah, he's kind of the bridge, as I say, between Peter and the Avengers, if you like.
And Stefan, there's a couple of girls, I think, in the movie who are supporting cast as well.
So the question is just, who are they?
No, so it's Laura Harrier and Zendaya.
Zendaya.
People that don't have full names. Where's the surname?
I know, it's like Cher. World's gone mad. Yeah, I thought Zendaya is great as Michelle. She's one of the funniest characters in this. In fact, they've actually assembled a really great little cast of youngsters. Not only obviously Tom Holland in the lead, and of course Jacob Batalon, we've already discussed, but you've got Angourie Rice from the Nice Guys, has got a small part in this, and then you've got Abraham Atta, who was the kid from Beasts of No Nation. He's in this briefly. And then you've also got Tony Revolori from Grand Budapest Hotels. They've almost handpicked some of the best child actors working today and put them into this movie. But for me, Zendaya as Michelle is the standout of the young crowd. But she's given some incredible one-liners. And it's very rare you want a spin-off from a non-superhero in a superhero movie in Marvel. But honestly, if she had a movie, I'd watch it. She's absolutely hilarious.
Let's just go back to Tom Holland. Obviously, this is his first full outing as Spider-Man. We're big fans of Tom here at Hey You Guys. We've known him as an actor for a long time through various ways, actually. But he just comes across like a lovely bloke, and whenever we interview him, he just seems so excited to be sort of, living the life that he is. Just keeps his feet on the ground. But in his performance, is he the best Spider-Man? Does he beat Toby? Does he beat Andrew? What do you think, Stefan?
I mean, well, it's difficult because I've got such a soft spot for Tobey Maguire, but that's because of the age I was when those movies came out. I was a kind of teenager, and I just loved those films so much. But I think that it's hard to say who the best Spider-Man is because they're such different reincarnations of the role. I really think they're so different. I thought that the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man was so introverted and quite nervous, and he had a bit of a nervous energy to him. He was very unpopular at school, and he was a bit of a kind of loner. And I loved that. That version of Spider-Man. This Spider-Man, despite the fact he's still quite geeky, he still does kind of Lego Star Wars and stuff like that. He's got more about him. There's a bit of a confidence and there's a bit of a swagger. I think the fact that usually with Spider-Man, we meet Spider-Man when no one knows who he is. This Spider-Man, we're meeting a teenager who's just hung out with Captain America and Iron Man in Civil War, and he's so proud of that. And he's got this real kind of swagger to him that they're such different parts. But I think this version of Spider-Man, Tom Holland does a really great job at. I think he really gets the role, and it really feels like the whole film is an audition, not only for Spider-Man being an Avenger, but for Spider-Man being a character we want to see more of in the MCU. And I really think he passed. I think I'd really already looking forward to seeing Tom Holland put on that spandex suit again. That sounds I don't know what to call it. The blue and red, the blue and red rubbery thing. Yeah. I'm going to stop talking.
Scott, do you agree?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. It's a fantastic performance, and he's kind of in strangely conglomeration of Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield. He's kind of in between because he has, as Stefan said, the geekiness, but also a bit of a swagger about him, which both of those kind of had separately. So, but he's fantastic, and I can't wait to see him. Can't wait to see him again. And if he's the character that's going to lead the MCU into Phase 4, which apparently is the rumor, then I'm all for it.
We're quite excited about this movie. I think it's going to make an awful lot of money. I haven't heard a bad word said about it. The 4-star, 5-star reviews seem to be flowing greatly. One thing we didn't discuss on was, Stefan, do you want to touch on it briefly, just about the link between Marvel and Sony and how that... Do you think having two studios together helped, or do you think that it's just because Marvel are involved that actually this, Kevin Feige's led this movie to be what it is?
It's quite hard to say. I mean, I think that because the results are so good, it's very easy to kind of say, oh, it's been a triumphant collaboration, therefore everything's great. But I bet the actual mechanics of the filmmaking process was so similar to other Marvel films, just in a sense, two studios kind of financing the film and putting their kind of input into it. But I think what Marvel have always been so proud of is how much they give their directors a platform to implement their own sensibilities as a filmmaker. So I imagine the film we're seeing is Jon Watts' movie. I don't think we're seeing... it didn't feel like, there's the Sony part, or there's the Marvel bit. It just felt like a really good superhero film. And I think that I'm sort of reluctant to sort of say that the studios have made such a triumph together, they should do this more often, because I think really what we've seen is a really well written, well acted, well directed film, and I think whoever's funding it behind the scenes is almost by the by.
So obviously in previous Marvel movies we've had end credit sequences. Scott, are there any in this movie? And without telling us what happens, I guess, just is it worth people sitting in their seats until the bitter end?
Yes, definitely stay in your seats. There are 2 post-credit sequences, one mid-credits, one at the end of the credits, and they both kind of they are tied in with the movie, so stick around. What I would preface by saying is that there was a lot of the spoilers going around Twitter as to what they are, so if you don't want to know, stay off of Twitter, because otherwise you're gonna find out what they are. But they're both definitely worth sticking around for.
Excellent. So those are our thoughts on Spider-Man Homecoming. Do let us know what you think when you've seen it in the comments below. Make sure you do a thumb up, like, and subscribe to our Facebook and YouTube, Instagram and Twitter on Hey You Guys. Do let us know what you think in the comments below, and we look forward to seeing you on the next Mouth Off. Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey, you guys!
Hey, you guys, huh?
Hey, you guys.
Is that from the Goonies?
It is indeed, yeah.
Nice.
Hey,